Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I speak in favour of the motion, which is supportive of government aims overall, but requests that the new algorithm, process, formula not be introduced without a meaningful parliamentary vote, assuming with the bill next year. I support levelling up 100%, but broadly speaking, the danger in these new targets and the way they've been shaped is that the biggest housing increases will be to rural shires and suburbs, and the biggest falls are in the urban north and Midlands. And the worst of all worlds, Mr. Speaker, would be to hollow out our cities, to urbanise our suburbs and suburbanise the countryside. And yet I fear that is what we may accidentally be achieving. And that is not levelling up, but it is concreting out. I think the Minister and I can both agree the market is failing first-time buyers. The answer is not greenfield sprawl or unachievable targets, but a new generation of community-based affordable housing accompanied by creative rent-to-buy schemes accessible for first-time buyers in existing communities. I'm now going to come, if I may, to the island to make a brief points about my constituency, Mr. Speaker. The government tells rural England that it needs to do its bit. I think the Isle of Wight tells a story similar to many here. Since 1960, the population of our beautiful, small island has grown 50%, not 15%, but 50%. In the same period, the Minister may be interested to know, Newcastle, Sunderland, Hull, Liverpool, Manchester, Birmingham, Stoke-on-Trent have all declined, not relatively, but in absolute terms. So I think the message from many parts of Britain is that we've been doing our bit for decades, and levelling up was about other people now doing theirs. And turning to the island, the new standard methodology, Mr. Speaker, simply does not make sense, because it is based on local income calculations. But housing demand, in my patch and others, is driven by other factors. In my case, it's the migration of retirees from across Britain. The good folks who retire to the Isle of Wight use assets, they use cash from house sales, not income to buy. And therefore, an affordability criteria, Mr. Speaker, based on income makes little sense, but actually artificially inflates our housing need by 70%. And indeed, our targets have little to do with our need. The indigenous population of the Isle of Wight is expected to decline by 11,000. Official figures show all our population growth until 2034 will come from 65 plus, either indigenous or retirees. And it's great that we have retirees, don't get me wrong, and I look forward to being one day. But the demographic imbalance damages our society, but also our economy. For the first time in 50 years, we need the white paper to be prioritising islanders, young and old, and not primarily building for a mainland retirement market. And I have yet to meet a single islander who disagrees with this agenda. Next, the final point I just want to make on the island. We face exceptional constraints in housing. We have our own housing industry. The big boys left years ago. As a legal baseline, we can build, our own little housing industry can build 2 to 250 units a year. We've averaged 350 in the last few years, non-affordable, almost all on low-density greenfield estates that damage our tourism economy. The government might as well be asking us to lead a moon landing programme for all our ability to deliver either the current targets or indeed the new ones. We're being set up for failure, and like other members, this is difficult to accept. If he wants to build for young islanders, I'll show him where to, I'll show him how to, and I'll tell the Minister what we need. But the answer is not low-density greenfield sprawl, and not the numbers demanded. And the Isle of Wight Council and I are at one on this. Generally, whether we represent suburbs or national parks, islands or cities, there is worth in the beauty of nature and place. And I feel that we can't keep ramming in housing without damaging our stewardship of the world. We need to think long-term and not just until the next election. The poet and painter Turner and Tennyson didn't come to the island because it was convenient, they came because it was beautiful and it inspired them. And that's one reason why the island is a UNESCO biosphere. And our beauty has an economic as well as a moral value. Visitors spend £500 million a year on the island. And the greater the urban sprawl, in the name of random algorithmic targets, the greater the damage to our economy and our quality of life and the intrinsic worth of our landscape and natural beauty. And I fear that long-term overdevelopment in some parts of Britain is now destroying the things that we love. But here are some ideas that a Conservative government should follow, in my humble opinion. Stick to the levelling up agenda. If not, Shire Tories will be furious and Red Wall Tories betrayed. Legally exhaust brownfield sites before greenfield is allowed. Give communities the right to ban low-density greenfield development. Strengthen, not weaken, community engagement. Respect the rural and suburban and indeed city natures of a place. And develop a plan-led system. Above all, we need to change the incentives. If he wants a sustainable future, let's be radical. Put VAT on greenfield sites and financial incentives for brownfield sites. Make developers pay council tax on undeveloped plots. That'll get them focused. Incentivise small developers to build out small plots or above shops where there is much more popular support for unused buildings. Free up government land for large-scale projects, but let's make it beautiful and respect the work done by Sir Roger Scruton and others. And potentially in London, tighten rules around foreign buyers who leave property empty and ban offshore shell purchases. Madam Deputy Speaker, the White Paper needs to herald an era of sustainable, greener development in significantly greater harmony with the world around us.